Hello, I'm James and welcome to my channel Western Signal. If you were here last time, you'd know that I've completed this engine shed and now I'm ready to lay track. Does it all go smoothly? Well, of course not, it's me. Why don't you find out what I've done wrong this time? Well, here we are. And you may notice that the audio is voiceover and not me talking to the camera, which it looks like I should be doing. That is because I bought a brand new microphone in hope that I could improve audio quality. Unfortunately, it did not improve audio quality, and some of the audio on these clips is horrendous. So, to cover up, I've decided to voiceover, so here I am. Right now I'm explaining to you that I've built my engine shed, it fits, the line beside it fits, and that I'm about to lay some points, because it's track laying time. So, let's get on with it. Firstly then, I'm going to have to mark out where the points go, following the plan that I've designed out in the previous episode. And even though I spent all that time filling in the holes on the baseboard, I will be cutting more holes into it because I'm going to be using Pico solenoid point motors. Okay, so I've decided to do Pico point motors with the chunky solenoids. Oh, I've dropped it. That one now. Oh, yeah, there we go. Right, got it. I've made a template, and that is roughly the size of the hole that the point motor should pass through, which hopefully means that I won't make anything too big in this baseboard, because if you look at this outline here, you can see I got a little bit carried away with this hole. Possibly 2 point motors went through there, but that's quite a chunky hole. So I want to try and avoid doing that, keep things as small as possible, but still manage to fit the point motor through, obviously. So I've just marked out there, it's roughly the edge of the point motor when you come in is 3mm. It'd be probably easier if I showed you on a point motor. What I'm talking about the pins or the legs. So you can see them here, there's those legs, and then I've measured just here. That is roughly 3mm. So then I've drawn a line on my template, so I know where to line it up underneath where I'm going to put the point motor with the fixing holes, which you can't see because my hand is in the way. The fixing holes, which are here and here. So make sure that we point in place. Then line up the point motor. To roughly be about there. But I have realised what I've done is I've drawn that line on there, but I haven't actually marked out where these holes go in relation to the point motor and the area space. I'm guessing right now. So I'm going to stop, I'm going to measure that up, mark it out, and then draw around it, rather than try and pretend I know what I'm doing right now. Right then, I'm back. For you, it felt like nothing, I'm sure. 6mm from the side into here, and that will take you onto the outside edge of the pin. So the pin in theory should be roughly somewhere where those poorly drawn boxes are. So now I've got a guide. I can put this on, and when I cut it, it will be slightly bigger than the template anyway. But as I say, I'm trying to minimise the amount of wood I cut out and try and keep things a bit more sort of tidy. And add that strength to it. So just going to line the lines up with the holes. You can see so it's roughly going like there. And now I'll just draw around so I know exactly where I am cutting this. There we are. I'll just pick that up and finish that off. And yeah, there we go. Only another 7 more to do. So with all the positions of the points marked out, it's time to cut the holes into the baseboard. I'll be doing that by simply drilling 4 holes in each corner and using the jigsaw to open up the space to allow the points to fit through. I try to keep things tight as possible so the holes don't get too big. As on part of the baseboard there was a massive hole I had to fit in. Not quite sure why it was so big. Anyway, here we go. Okay, I want to confidently show off that I had worked out where all the points were going to go. I got all the buttons in the right place. There was going to be no issues. You can see from this very poor cut here, and from the fact that this jigsaw is still currently sat here, that I have not taken into account that whilst I've got the buttons in the right place, I hadn't considered the cleats. And when I say cleats, I mean risers, because obviously the cleats are the battens. Take them off, move them, and adjust it to fix this problem. Oh well, it's not Model Railways about issues, is it? The issue wasn't drastic, it just meant removing some of the risers, repositioning them, and allowing me to cut the holes. All hunky-dory, right? Nothing else could go wrong, surely, right? So, as I always do, I've run into a bit of a problem. If you look at this old Pico point motor, you may notice that this bit here has been cut off. Now these were given to me a very long time ago. I think someone was just getting rid of a load of stuff, and so I just got some second-hand point motors. I've tested it, it fires, so there's no issues there, but it has been cut to fit an OO gauge set of points. So these narrow gauge points, while these 2 pins would go over here, there's nothing to hold up here, so the point motor isn't held. So I had to think about how I could get around this problem without having to go out and get a load more new point motors, because this one isn't the only one. There's a couple like this. So I was thinking, well, how can I keep that point motor upright? So I've come up with this little solution here. I've just got some brass rod. I've bent it to go through the point like this. So if I paint that blend in nicely, and probably will look a lot better than those 2 garish looking pins that are going to be sticking out the other side. And then as you can see, I'm kind of drop the rod down, and I've just bent where I'm going to fold it round at the bottom of the point motor to anchor it in place. So that is my solution to that. Hopefully it'll work. It should do. I mean, it's just essentially I just want to hold it in position so it fires the points. And that'll get around that. Otherwise I think I'm going to have to go out and get at least another 4 or 5 point motors, which is going to delay my build for one thing, and that'll be today gone, because I'll be going out to a model shop to get them, and model shops that sell point motors are not local to me, so they're really bit of a drive. Right, point motor is attached along with the cover for the hole. So I'll start with the cover. I simply marked out, as you can see, where everything needed to go, and then for the holes, I'll try and get it in focus. I just made them a little bit bigger than they need to be, just to allow for a bit of play on all of them, and then we just slide over top of the point motor. And then most importantly is the brass rod fixing. So you can see there, it's in place, holding up the point motor. That's working nicely. The only issue I found was that if you have the brass rod sitting on the sleepers, then the tie bar would catch on it. In particular, the I don't know what you call that, pin. I can't call it a pin. The name of it's just gone from my head completely. Anyway, that was sticking up a little bit, protruding, so it was catching on that. So I've just put a little bit of plastic card just to raise that brass rod just a little bit higher, and that holds it all in place. So that's nice and secure, and solves the issue of those legs being cut off there. So just need to do the other 8 point motors, and I can put them all on the layout. Well, the points are in place, but I've come across a problem, and that problem
might be quite evident right now if you look towards that signal box. Because the signal box is quite large. It probably is a bit too big for a narrow gauge line, but I like it. It's staying. But as you can see where the flexi track has been laid out, where I intend to build the loops for the platforms, I've put some coaches on, and then I've put some figures in between the coaches and the signal box to demonstrate the limitations of space. Because if this were real life and you were trying to get off one of those coaches, you'd open the door and find there's a big signal box in the way, and then you may find that another door is open and you're kind of trapped. So it's not really great for clearance. How am I going to get around this? Well, I don't want to move the signal box. One, there isn't anywhere else to put it, and two, I kind of like it as an island signal box in the middle, which is overseeing everything. So the only option here is to make the loop bigger, and that's going to mean, where I'm just moving this coach now, this track is going to have to be pushed back, and it's going to have to go where I was intending to put an extra siding, as demonstrated here. That means I lose a siding. Is it the end of the world? Not really. It just makes things a little bit more difficult for the yard, because I can lengthen a siding, as I've sort of demonstrated here where the wagons are, and then things will just have to be shunted out, held on one of the loops while some shunting's done on the other sidings, and then brought back in before another train arrives. So it adds a bit more operational sort of fun, I suppose. A little bit more thinking and creative process and how to do things, rather than just being nice and easy because there's plenty of sidings. And besides, the railway's supposed to not have a lot of money, so it makes sense that it hasn't put a lot of sidings in. I'll have to consider the access to the station. Originally, I was going to have just foot crossings across one of the tracks for passengers to get to the platform, but I think by changing things around, I will probably now look at doing a footbridge. But time will tell. So, with the new plan in place, it means I'm going to have to take out a set of points, fill in a hole on the baseboard, and then lay the rest of the track. But I'm sure it'll work out all right. Usually does for me in the end.
Here we are then with the track mostly laid in place. I've got the sidings here. I've made a few amendments to the original plan. This one being the first one. Originally the sidings were going to be side by side, and then I thought, well, I could build a cattle dock here and have a goods shed here, and that should then utilise these sidings better. Over here, the second siding I decided not to put in the end. I've just done a very long spur going all the way down to the throat of the station. And then if we come to here, this is probably the most difficult part, and I've not glued anything in place yet. But clearances are very, very tight around here. So firstly, I've had to make sure that rolling stock can pass the side of the shed. Then I've had to make sure the shed is in the right place and the track going into the shed is in the right place, because these Baldwins are so wide, there is no tolerance. Nothing will be forgiven if this doesn't go exactly in place, which is quite frustrating. So they're going to catch on the doors, or they're just not going to fit in the shed, which is a bit of an irritation. There's ways around it, I suppose. I can remove the centre doors here, and then I can sort of double up on this side, so it can be double doors that stretch right across. But yeah, it's somewhat annoying that they are not quite wide enough just to allow just a little bit of tolerance for the Baldwin locos. I think these are the widest of my stock. So I've positioned everything in the best place I can. I'm now going to mark out where everything needs to go, and it's all going to have to be glued down in the exact spot. Otherwise, this shed is not going to work. Okay, you're going to have to excuse the mess because it is an absolute pigsty in here. But the narrow gauge track is all in place, so there's some positives. Yep. As I just took you through, obviously I've laid those sidings. I've decided that I'll just have one siding over here, nice long siding. As you can see, look, it can hold 3 of those ex-military open wagons. It can actually hold a 4th, and there'll still be room for a loco to shunt. So there's still a bit of playable room. And then I thought about it as well, and I thought, well, do you know what? It'd make it more interesting, because if you've got less sidings but still the same amount of traffic I plan to run, it'd be a case of having to pull wagons out, leave them on the loop by the station, shunt things around, put them back in to make sure they're in time, and clear out the way for when the next train arrives. So makes it a bit more interesting. So that's all that in place there. There's the engine shed. The track took some fine adjusting, fiddling around. I found if I push the shed back, just by you can see that pink mark there, the Baldwin locos managed to just fit in through the doors without catching on them. So it means the shed is right on the back of the board, which I didn't really want it there. I wanted a bit of scenery sort of gap behind it just to protect the model itself if the boards come apart. But it is what it is. Maybe in the future I might just replace this shed with some other structure that would allow the Baldwins to go in a bit easier. But for the time being, it can stay in place, and that is the track down. I haven't done here. This is just a placeholder, and the same at the other end. And the reason for that is I want to build the other baseboards and connect them up, and then be able to separate the layout into modules. So that's going to be done at a later date. So that'll just be a placeholder for now. But otherwise, it's all down, ready for wiring up. So I'm going to do that. I don't think I'm going to film that. I think I'm just going to wire it, and then when I come back, it'll be all wired up. So, yeah, there we go. Exciting stuff. Right then, I realised that the last time I did a video, I said I wasn't going to come back until the wiring was done. But I had to think about the layout, and I had to think about the wiring, and how I was actually going to do this. So I've not actually done anything on the layout for a few days, and that's because I just had enough with the mess in the layout room. It was too much. It was just everywhere. I couldn't get on with my work, too distracting and all that. So over the course of 6 days, and not full 6 days, just on and off when I had a bit of time, I've just cleared out of here, tidied it up. I've thrown rubbish away. I've gone through, I've gone through my scraps box. I've gone through all my tools box, tools I never use, or crappy tweezers that don't even meet together, stuff like that. It's all out, it's all gone. Just keeping it for the sake of it. So I've gone through magazines, everything. So it's a lot tidier in here, so I feel a lot more happier to do my work. So come back to the 009. I've had a look at it today, and I felt like it was a bit of a struggle to move on to the next stage because I wasn't quite sure how to do this wiring. And that's because I'm going to build it as a module. This will be the first module. The narrows will be the other module on this side, and the line around the old ruined castle will be on this side. And then how I connect it all together, I haven't quite decided if it goes against the wall and underneath the 00 gauge layout, or I just put it in modules and put it together somewhere else. I haven't decided. Which means that I need to work out a way of controlling the power whilst it's a separate module. Obviously, I'll build a control panel later on, but for the time being, I just need to control these points and the isolating sections. So I had to think about it, and I thought, well, what I probably need to do is actually just start working a bit more on the baseboard and adding fascia boards. So I've got some 3mm ply. I've cut it to size. Now this will go on the front, and then I'll add switches to the front of this fascia panel so I can control the layout from this side. And then what I'll do is I'll wire it into a plug so that you can simply unplug the switches on the front, plug it into essentially an extension cord round to the control panel at a later date. And that's sort of how I'm going to do this. So yeah, this is just cut to size that meets the L girder to the base of it, and then just enough lip to allow for the river to go at the bottom here. Now, honestly, the price of plywood, I just can't believe. Every time I go buy wood, it's just amazing me how more and more expensive it gets. A sheet of 3mm ply cost me £11. And a couple of years ago I bought 12mm. I'm sure for the same price. It's just crazy how expensive this wood's getting, but there we are. It is what it is. So yeah, it's cut to size. I'm gonna add this bit to the front. I'm gonna add a larger 40cm bit to the back. That will be part of the back scene. I haven't decided. I may build over the top and have like a lighting rig. I've seen a lot of layouts have that recently, where they sort of frame it and light it. I think it looks a lot better. The other advantage of that is if we do that, I can then have the 00 on top, and I haven't got the garish wires showing from the OO gauge. So we'll see on that. But yeah, now I need to work out how to attach this to this. and it's interesting. What I kind of like about this is this framework on the Elgato feels it's a bit like building in Lego, like a Lego Star Wars ship. You're building the framework and then adding the plates on the outside to sort of bring it to that finished looking, in this case, layout. So once I've worked out how I'm going to hold these in place while I try and screw it all together, I might be able to make a move on this layout. We shall see.
Right, one of the best advantages of modular baseboards is this. The fact that you don't have to crawl underneath, you can simply pick it up, flip it upside down, and wire up your layout, which makes life a lot easier. So, as you can see, with all this jumble of wires, this absolute massive mess, this board is wired up, ready to go. So I'm going to flip it over, put some power to it, test it, and fingers crossed everything works. But usually with my wiring, something doesn't work and I'll have to fault find and then get very frustrated with it. But that's the hobby for you, I suppose.
First things first then, I'm going to test out the point motors, mostly because I just haven't quite finished wiring into the capacitor discharge unit, just while I get everything sort of finalised. But I just want to make sure it works. That's the important thing right now. So, powered up. I'm not one of these YouTubers that just pretends it all works. If it doesn't work, you'll know about it. Usually, there'll be a swear word. Right, let's press some buttons and see what happens. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, my lords. They're all working so far. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And the final ones. Ah. There's always one. There's always one. It fires one way. Oh, no, it does go back. There we go. I just used up all the charge in the capacitor discharge unit. There we go. That is every set of points fires on the layout. So that, number one, all sorted. So I'm going to stop this video for a minute, rewire up the controller to put the power to the track, and we're going to test the track. And if that works, I'm going to be very, very happy. Very happy. And I just have a feeling it's not going to work. Right then, let's see if this track works. So, put some power on. I've got my little track tester. Nothing so far. Oh, look at that! That's good. Right, all the switches need to be up in the air. Oh, looking good. Looking good. Looking good. Looking good. Still looking good. Ah, wow. I'm very happy. I am very, very happy. Now, the only thing I need to do, and I've just realised it, is I've wired up the loop so it can be isolated into two sections, because ideally the locomotive will come in from Porthcawl, stop here, and then we'll bring a banker off the shed onto this loop, round here and onto here. So I don't want this train moving off whilst this train's moving around. So I need to just cut the rail on here and the rail on here just to break them up into two isolated sections. But apart from that, you saw with the little tester, we have power. We have power on this layout, which is absolutely brilliant. Don't have it there, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to wire in some track here. And you can't see it anyway, I just realised on the camera. So, but yeah, this is great. This is great. I'm so happy about this. So, as I say, I just need to cut the rails just to separate them into two separate isolated sections. And then the only other job I need to do is I need to add some wood down here with holes for bolts and dowel alignment, or cabinet maker dowel, so that I can then join these module boards together. Apart from that, it's then a case of just adding these little bits of track at the ends, and then I can start building up the scenery. So yeah, I'm well happy, because usually these things don't work first time round. You're going to think I'm lying now, and I've done like 20 takes until I got it right. But generally, first time.
Well, I bet you thought that was the end of the voiceover and I'd solved the microphone issue. Well, apparently I haven't, because this clip was also terrible. And what's also terrible is that fascia board. Why? Well, you can see there's a pencil line there, and that pencil line marks where the riverbed's going to go. And if you look closely, you can see that those blue switches sit above that pencil line. How am I going to get around this problem? Well, you're going to have to see that in another video, but it probably won't be the next one, because next time I think I'm going to show you how I painted that lovely signal box.
Well, I think that'll do for this episode. As you can see, I have progressed a little further. I have solved the river problem. Also added a back scene. I've also got to show you how I paint this lovely signal box. But that is for another time. I also appear to be catching up on myself in video, so I suppose I better start cracking on. So whilst I'm doing that, why don't you hit the subscribe button if you're liking the channel, the like button if you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching.
That was good, wasn't it? Why don't you watch another one?